welcome to the first episode of Skillful AI Founders Podcast. I'm JD, the CMO, and here's our first guest, the Stanley, the founder, our COO. Today is just going to be a great overview of what we're building. This past week has been very, very busy for the whole team. We've advanced quite a lot. The idea of this podcast is pretty much for you, for you, the founders, to be able to explain the narrative of each of the areas that you guys are building on, be able to, explain our community what we're doing, and obviously having a Q&A session as well. We posted a tweet recently, have like 30 questions there for you, my guy. So get ready for that.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure. I did see the tweet, and I'm grateful for you to be setting up this founders podcast. But as a C-suite member yourself, we're gonna have to figure out how to interview you at the end. I know you're not a founder in that sense, but you are on the C-suite, so should probably find out a little bit why you have the title you have. But that's a topic for another podcast.
Yeah, I guess after you, it's gonna be E, our CTO, then C, our CEO, and then I guess can be me. Yeah, maybe I'll have Max interview me. Max, shout out to Max, one of the OGs. He brought us a lot of money when we were starting the fundraising part of things, like right before we got a little bit of the traction going on with, Beck. We now have like Becker tweeting about us. There was a video coming out today and stuff, but Max was there like way before all this, and so one of the believers, we have quite a few of those in the Discord, the OGs and the Sky Chat. So shout out to all of you guys that were here like since the very beginning, that saw the vision. And yeah, speaking of community and OG believers, we have a lot of stuff coming up soon for the community. Obviously we're not gonna straight up say what we have for you guys, but if you check our tokenomics and stuff, we do have community incentives. So, we have quests going on, we have XP, we have annual release token. So, I'm not going to say it straight away, but if you add 2 and 2 together I guess be excited. Plus, the treasure hunt, $10,000 plus tokens, a really good token to have as well as a reward. The game is going to be super fun. We have an NFD collection coming up that you may be able to touch up a little bit more on that. But yeah, that's actually going to happen next month, right before launch. So it's going to be a busy month for Skillful.
Yeah, geez, are we speed running the podcast or something? You're giving them all the teasers right here at the start, or are you just warming them up for what's to come?
Nice warming them up.
That's great, and like I said, that's just the start, really. That's just the what you can find if you do a little digging. It's what you can't find yet that I think people will be excited about.
Yeah. So, sir, anything specific that you want to start with? I just gave an overview of teasers, pretty much, that we can all expand on those. I have a bunch of questions for you, but you as our CEO, you've been seeing how we just close private, we close seed round.
Yep.
And I guess you're quite busy with the tokenomic aspect and trying to just fill in all the people. We had to turn down a lot of people that we wanted to be part of. So, if we want to touch a little bit on that, we want to include as many community members as possible. It's just not possible to be able to get everyone in this early, but we have an idea coming soon.
So yeah, people were very interested in the raise side, and so we do have an announcement coming out, but I'm not sure where this podcast will come compared to that. So I will talk a little bit about how things stand, and how things went down in that regard. It was all very good and still very overwhelming. But what ended up happening is like JD said, we had started raise. Max had started getting us some funds in, and we had our initial interest, our initial few 100K there in the seed, 100K, and then another 100K was getting sorted, and then Becca came in wanting to talk to us and invest. We ended up talking to him, and he signed on. And from there, the message spread very quickly, as things do in the crypto space. Once one person knows something, it's not long until their friend knows it, who knows their friend knows it, and then all of a sudden, there's a very large backlog. So we had already had a few 100K in signups, and the seed round wasn't very large, it was only 550K. And so within that first day, we had already had over 2 million in signups in those few hours that I was awake there. We had predicted that it was going to be a 20% conversion rate due to a 2-year vesting and people not wanting to have to invest that long. again, each to their own. I actually think that vesting is not long enough, but that's a completely different topic. We
Yeah.
did think there was going to be about a 20% conversion rate of people that could see the vision and see that the 2-year vesting is the bare minimum needed to make sure things are going smoothly. But like the market cap is so low that the 2-year vesting is not what you are really looking at in that regard, due to the very, very low market cap, in my opinion. But what ended up happening is we'd had like for the first few days there, it was like a 99% conversion, 95%. I think we've ended on 95%. And so what ended up happening is all these rounds were filled very quickly. The seed round, we did try to make sure that we got as many public people in. So I was, it's a lot more admin for us to do that, doing, a few $1,000s here and there. But we did obviously spend those few days making sure that we got out to as many people as we could.
Yeah.
And
Cheers to
most people got
Sultan
back
for
to us.
that.
Yeah, dude. He was on his holiday. Our CEO was on his holiday, and he has to sign all the agreements, and so he didn't get to go skiing. I think he went skiing on the last day. I think I think he got to go skiing on the very last day, just before he came home to finish work. But then move into the private round. Before we could even announce it, we already pretty much had that filled and allocated too. So I think that 1.8 million between seed and private was allocated. We've just been signing staff and getting the money in our account in the last few days. But again, that was allocated within 48 hours, let's say, on the longest, being a bit skeptical there. And then within another 48 hours, making sure everyone's got their things signed, their KYC's done, and sending us the money. And so if I look back at the interest of sign up between VCs and users, at this point, it's probably getting closer to 8 to 10 million in backlog, not including the amount that's been put in. So we just really don't have enough round to fill all that demand, which is very unfortunate because, of course,
Yeah.
I'm never one to say no to money, but at the same time, I'm not going to just go changing the rounds around in the middle of raising. We
Yeah.
knew what we were getting into when we did that, and we stuck with the philosophy that we'd rather be undervalued than overvalued going into launch and developing things.
True. I mean, that undervalued factor is quite real. When you mentioned the market cap being too low, we're launching at a market cap that is, under 1 million, I believe. So that's
700. Well, let's see if I can do this. 726K 400. Let's
yeah.
have a look. I probably have it here somewhere. Sheets.
Yeah, things around that. But I mean, we're talking about an AI coin, one of the hottest niches in the market. Well, I can personally say it because I know the founders. Like, I know what we're building behind the scenes. I know our CTO. I know some of the devs. I know what they're building is literally what we're saying we're going to build is happening behind the scenes. It's quite an exciting product. It's life changing. So we have an actual product and a coin that is going to be under 1 million market cap at launch. I'm not going to say too much because legal will hate me, but that sounds very bullish to me.
Yeah, well, we before we even had these investments coming in, we had already done a lot of the work. So I have had people asking recently about partnerships. What are you doing partnerships? What are you doing here? And not to burst your guys' bubble, but you can see our partnerships on the website. You can do while we haven't wrote it out as an explicit series of steps, you can look and figure out that we have everything there. We have our privacy solution for user data and storage and retrieval. We have our situation sorted out on the blockchain and account abstraction side to have a seamless platform where users can use what we're producing without having to be tech savvy, without having to be into Web3 things, while still providing the options to allow people to take self-custody into their own hands if they don't want to use an account abstraction method. So, all these partnerships have been, scouted out already and signed, so that we can, everything we say that we're building, we're in the middle of building it. We're not imagining it. We're not saying, oh, if we get the right things in place, we can do this and that. We're in the middle of doing that with our partners already.
Yeah. Now that we're talking about the product aspect of things, is recently you've been seeing a lot of, for example, Elon Musk making jokes at, for example, OpenAI, saying like close AI and all that kind of stuff. I was talking with Emmanuel yesterday. Emmanuel's our CTO. We were talking about an actual OpenAI. We could pretty much say Skillful is an OpenAI because you have over 40 plus language models plus our own. It really brings the opportunity for people to come and almost any tool that you can think of, anything you can think of creating, any language model that is out there available. you can go and use your platform for it. So it's really like a huge open source platform to literally create anything that you can think of.
Yeah, so there's two verticals in that sense, right? Where any models that exist that are available to be paid for or accessed through an API, we can incorporate as an option when people are building their assistants, and that includes on the decentralized side, on the Web2 side, any new player that comes into the field with a large language model data set, from fine tuning all the way to brand new data sets, we can integrate them. And that's on top of the fact that we'll be having our DAO voted and trained models, right? So we'll be
Yeah.
having a system in place where token holders can vote on different fine-tuned models. So we have fine-tuned models for specific tasks, and the community will be able to take these and vote on data sets to go in them to help fine-tune them and refine them, and then those communities will be able to use them while building their assistants if they wish. So we're not just using other model providers. While we are including them, we are producing our own fine-tuned models and our own models in that sense. But our main value cap on the AI and machine learning side isn't necessarily on the LLM side of things, although that is very cool. It is more on the unique solutions for long-term memory and the ability to use tooling. I think people have a misunderstanding on what we've meant in the past when saying tooling. And while I won't take all these technical questions right now, I'll just give a brief overview so that we can leave them for Emmanuel, our CTO.
Yep.
Tooling is really talking about how the AI interacts with the outside world and executes tasks, right? A large language model is trained on a data set, and it has access to that data set and not a lot else in the in the real world. Tooling is really just how we're integrating real world data and using machine learning models to access programs that exist. An example would be if you wanted a trading bot, it having access to live charts and things like that, like actually updating information right now and being able to make decisions on it. That is what I mean when we talk about tooling. If I give my assistant a task, I say, hey, I need you to do this campaign for me, and I need um, a banner and this and that for it. It knows how to execute that task, what tools to use. It knows how to use Canva. It knows how to do this and that, so that it can actually execute that task without you babying it. But again, I'll leave the more in-depth side there for the CTO to get into, but that's
Yep.
pretty much the differential point. Everyone's talking about large language models, which are great, but there's more to AI than just a chatbot, than just the large language model that underlies a lot of things. There are other toolings and other ways to train models that are important. Again, that memory side, that ability to execute tasks without being explicitly told every single step of the way how to do something.
Cool. Yeah. There was a lot that I wanted to add to that when you were talking about the image creation, for example, and all that stuff. Because I was just talking with E about that stuff, but yeah, I'll save that for the next pod. What we're building is quite exciting. We expect weekly updates in terms of product and new features. That is already a for sure thing. Talk with the tech team. So we're gonna have a lot of updates coming soon, literally on a weekly basis, on terms of new stuff that you can do in your platform.
Yeah, and I think it's fine if we double over some questions with each of the founders. Again, we all have the same
Yeah.
vision in mind, but some of us find different parts of it the most exciting, right? We don't all find the exact same part uh, exciting. We're obviously very excited for everything we're doing, but we all have our unique perspectives on some of the points and some of the parts that we're doing. And so in that sense, I think some of these repeat questions, again, this is just get to know us, or that's what I'm hoping to do. And so I think some of the repeat questions on what we're doing as a company, how we see the vision, is kind of quite good, because then you get an insight into how each of us see different parts of the
Yeah.
company and what we like and all that kind of stuff.
Now that you mentioned that, I wanted to ask, like, what's your overall vision for Skillful? Like, where do you see Skillful in the future? Or like, why exactly did you get started with Skillful? So I know why E did it, for example. It's quite a dystopian idea that can actually be real. Not in the super long term future, but just wanted to ask each founder that, like, what's your feeling about AI future, where Skillful going?
Yeah, well, I've been known as being quite abrasive, and the ability to do and say things, and having each person do and say what they wish, and their the outcome for those actions being public backlash to a degree, without necessarily having to force people into a certain perception of the world, as that changes all the time, is kind of something I'm passionate about, and in that regard, um, people can make their own decisions. Again, if you want to do something again, I guess I don't like the direction that AI was going and babying everyone and controlling your thoughts. You can only think this, you can only do this. A lot of these safety measures make a lot of the AI more useless than Googling something for all intents and purposes at this stage, right? And that's not what we want. Our kids will probably be using large language models instead of Google to find information. And so if that information is curated for them, then the idea of free speech and actually being able to find niche topics is non-existent, right? You're pipelined
Yeah.
into a way of thinking. And as a researcher, my background's in research. We actually skip my background a little bit here, but hey, we can double back.
Yeah.
With my background in research, I don't like that. I don't like, it'll be like if I was going to read papers on previous studies and I went to access them and they're like, oh, you can only read these papers here because we don't like these other ones just because they didn't pay us or something. That would not
Yeah.
be very good research, right? It would really limit my ability to think and access controversial potentially topics and ideas and make up my own mind. I'm not a child. I can decide whether I think something is right or wrong.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so that's kind of where my passion came from in this AI space as I saw it developing. Um, and so meeting Emmanuel, the CTO, last year, he got me really into understanding these things on a deeper level, on what there is underneath the hood, and where there are other verticals for AI instead of just large language models. So last
Yeah.
year and getting close to a year and a quarter, year and a half, I've been backlogging a lot of my research into AI with his assistance there to help speed run me a little bit. And so that's kind of been where I'm at. And as I got deeper and deeper in it, and then saw how things were progressing in the Web2 space with these companies, the more I felt driven to make sure that we provide something. And there's a few people in Web3 doing that again. There's a few chains that are looking to be AI hubs and training up large language models using like a Bitcoin style incentive. And I think these are the kind of things we need, these open sourced models. I don't think anyone is so far, at least at the stage of so early, right or wrong in that sense. At the moment, it just comes down to how does the training look? Is it executed properly? It's all up in the air right now, but that's the right way to go about it.
Yeah. And the biases and the curated information is a crazy subject. I mean, we all saw what happened to Google recently to its AI, how they literally had to turn off certain features because of how crazy they were going in that
No
direction.
comment.
Yeah. So I leave it at that. But when you know what I'm talking about, and people know what I'm talking about, just with
No,
mentioning
we can
Google.
comment
But
on it. No, we can comment on it. Like, yeah, like it goes to prove that people aren't infallible. And when you have these large companies, while you think of large companies as a single entity, it's not. It's a group of people working on certain areas. It's a team. It's a this. It's a that. So there might be 10 or 15 people that have an idea or a narrative that they're pushing through in their department, right? Which is why I think people are quite attracted to these large language models that are open to a large amount of people. Again, if it's an agenda when it's a few dozen or 100 people. It's a society when it's the majority, right? That's
yeah,
that's pretty much what it is. And so it's the difference between deciding what goes into a model as a small subset of people who ended up in the same spot. You probably all have very similar. Again, we can talk about the homogenous nature of certain groups within companies, but that's not necessarily
yeah,
what we need to do right now. But the point is that there's always a small subgroup that is making these decisions at the end of the day, um, and that is not always representative of the whole. And so
yeah,
I think, in terms of sample size, right, it is much better to have a larger sample. So a decentralized large language model, for example, that has millions of contributors should be somewhat of the goal to have as an option. Again, you don't have to use it. There's a lot of limitations in terms of how the data is used, how it's trained. There's obviously
yeah,
at this stage you need to have a lot of nuances in training where you have to say if something is right or wrong. It's not like it isn't able to be fed infinite amounts of data without tagging. So obviously there are complications in scaling, but that's why when you get onto figuring out how are we going to have millions of people come together to decide what information goes into something. And if we don't start that
yeah.
now, then it just gets harder and harder.
Right. Yeah. I'll drink to that, mate.
Water, I hope.
Of course it is.
Very good.
But
What's next up on the list?
No, I just wanted to touch up a little bit with that subject they were talking about,
Yep.
the information and what data goes into the platform, because something that some people have asked me quite a bit when I'm talking about Skillful, especially in real life conversations, is like, is your platform going to be censored? Or like, how free am I to use AI as an actual tool, however I wanted to use it? Or like, am I going to be restricted by certain policy rules from the company that I'm not allowed to search this or that, or like, this is going to give me information on this subject? And I think you have an opinion on that. I mean, we've talked about it offline as well, but feel free to let them know how free Skillful is going to be.
I have a very strong opinion, and that opinion is gated at the internet. If you want to gate AI and what you can search, why if I can search it on Google, why can't I search it with AI? Because it's faster. Because is it suggestive of the company's opinion? Well, currently, yes, it is suggestive of the company's opinion for large companies out there like Google and that, because they're very biased in what they allow in. So actually, I would argue that they should be somewhat liable because they're purposefully choosing what
Mhm.
information goes into it, right? But if you allow it to be open, just like the internet, then at that point, is it your fault? Is it the internet provider's fault? Well, no, it's the user's fault. If you commit
Yeah,
crimes on the internet, if you go onto Google and start looking at ways to commit crimes, that's not Google's search engine's fault. That's not your internet provider's fault. That's you as a human making a decision to do something bad, right? And there's a lot of conversations around, but AI is so much more powerful. It's so this, it's so that, and it's like that's been said about every bit of technology, right? And the
yeah,
only thing that we know to be true about technology is that if you don't have it get to everyone, the people that don't have the technology have a worse socioeconomic standing afterwards. That is the only thing that we know for a fact, right? Everyone says that how technology is so scary and dangerous and this and that. And the only thing we know after the fact, looking back, is that if you do not get, economic changing technology into the hands of as many people as possible, then they're at a disadvantage. Think about the countries where someone doesn't have a phone right now. Think about the countries
yeah,
where someone doesn't have internet access. And think about what happens to those countries when they do it. When they increase the access to the population to have internet or phones or anything else. When you get to tap into this global trade or global networking, poorer countries get to offer their services if they're good at something for a fraction of the cost and get work that they otherwise couldn't get and get money into their economy. So the argument that you need to restrict everyone and tell everyone what to do and how to do it with technology um, is authoritarian. Like it's not
yeah,
it's not it's not how people work. Of course there are dangers, but I think the dangers are on the opposite side, right? I think the dangers are on the side of, well, governments want to tie it all down, make sure nobody can do anything, and then they have full control because they're scared, right? And when they're
yeah.
scared, they'll do anything. That's my 2 cents. Um,
But yeah, it would go literally against what we're building. I mean, Skillful, from what I've heard, from what I've seen, is pretty much is a tool to actually power people, to actually let them know, bring their background to the platform, and actually use AI as a tool for AI to work for them and not AI to replace them, as that's actually quite the scare of a lot of people when they're doing their job and they're like, oh, this actually can do my job
oh,
100% the way I can, so I'm gonna get replaced. The idea of Skillful is actually to prevent that. Is actually as a tool to save yourself, pretty much digitize yourself. So if you start restricting people in your platform, well, it literally goes against it. We're up for privacy, we're up for customization, personalization. So restricting that literally goes against our core values, pretty much.
yeah, and that's why we need to get open sourced models out there as soon as possible, right? Because once legislation starts coming in where they're trying to be really restrictive on it, then at some point your hands do get tied from a legal perspective. So
Yeah,
while we can, getting those models out there and open sourcing them so that they're already out there before we get pinged too hard or before the industry gets pinged too hard. Luckily, policymakers are usually a bit slow, is the ultimate goal there. Because again, once it's out there, once the code's open source, kind of like Bitcoin and the blockchain, once it's out there, it's too bad. It's out there. People know how to get it,
yeah,
and so pushing these tools out to people and allowing them to do it as soon as possible is the main goal. Because once you have access to it, it's kind of hard to take it away from you.
cool. So I know we kind of skip your intro. We just started yapping right away. To be honest, it's my bad. I just started throwing all the teasers right at the start, all everything that we're doing. But you mentioned you have a background in research. So how about you expand a little bit on that, and also, how did you get started on crypto? Pretty much, how did you go from research and chemistry. I know you have a background in chemistry as well. To now building this AI company and being full into crypto as well.
Yeah. So my background, my background's in chemistry, physical chemistry, mainly photovoltaics and Raman spectroscopy, and then I did some research in the summers with a group working on isotope tracing. And so isotope tracing is just a way to find geographical origins of things based on how different regions have different ratios of isotopes. So it's all a bunch of boring chemistry stuff, but the point is that I spent a lot of time doing research on computational modeling. Most of the things we did there were working on light emitting and light absorbing compounds. So that's things that use in like solar cells and TVs and stuff. I did a lot of research and collaboration with some Korean groups who would then take our experiments in our compounds and put them into live solar cells, and then would work back and forth there to try to improve them. On the isotope side, we worked with the border control to find origin of pests. So New Zealand is quite a small country with not a lot of pests and so on and so forth. So when we have something that could possibly disrupt the ecological balance of the country, especially at the border, they take it very seriously. And the issue they had was that they couldn't figure out where these bugs were coming from, because by the time they found them, when they were dead, ants had already, or other insects had eaten all of them except for their wings. So they just had these little tiny bug wings left, and you couldn't do a lot of science on them. Funnily enough, the Raman spectroscopy group that I worked with had tried to solve this in the past and couldn't with our techniques. And then we ended up solving it with the isotope group I was working with. The same problem, different groups. I didn't even know about at the time, but we actually, so we developed a novel way to find out where these bugs came from based on their wings that were left over. So talking about like tiny microgram samples. So that's something that I'm very proud of in that regard. But I ended up leaving academics because academics is not synonymous with science. They actually have somewhat conflicting philosophies, trying to get funding, trying to do this. A lot of people are willing to throw aside some of the science for political reasons. You wouldn't think of science being very political sometimes, but it is. And I couldn't stand it, because I'm not bootlicking someone to allow me to do something that's the right way to do it, right? That seems counterintuitive, and I'd rather tell them to shove it. And so I ended up leaving. I wasn't the type of style for me, I guess, so I left that, and then I got into the blockchain space. My friend was trading crypto at the time. He wanted to show me how to do it, and I was like, well, what is this though? You're trading it, but like, what is it? I heard about Bitcoin before and Ethereum, but like, I didn't really understand what all this other stuff was. And so within 24 hours of him introducing it to me, I was already on chain, loading up my last few $100s to buy,
You skipped the whole process. You went straight on chain to the meme coins. That's
yeah. I
that's wild.
I skipped the exchange and went straight on chain. I was like, oh, what's a bridge? And he's like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna find out what a bridge is. What's this? Okay, I don't know. I'm gonna find out. What's an EVM chain? I'm gonna find that out. What's Solana? What is this? What is everything? And so everything he had mentioned to me, I'd be like, well, what is it? And I'd spend a couple hours researching it, and then eventually started working with crypto projects. So this would have been in 2021, right? So not very long in the space in terms of crypto, but I can tell you right now, my research speed is definitely worth a few more years on the average person. So, got on chain, just started trying to work for projects. I was working for free pretty much. I was just getting into projects and saying, hey, I just want to see what you guys are doing, how we're doing it. Help with this and that. And slowly over time, I saw a lot of projects launching were very unorganized and didn't really have a structure in place for how they're doing research, why they're making decisions. They're just kind of making decisions. And so I ended up being in charge of small groups within projects there, organizing them, doing research and doing backlog. A lot of math. Turns out most people are not very good at math. Go figure. So most of my work was actually doing spreadsheets for what I would say is pretty rudimentary math, but again, it's what people needed at the time. And so I helped design projects with launching, like L2, like not layer 2 because we have layer 2s now, but like on top of dexes, when they have extra incentives on top of them. I'm not sure what the term is these days for those type of protocols. Vampire protocols, no, for predicting the APR rates and emission rates and all that kind of stuff. I believe my best one there was we were planning for launch, and I did all the numbers out based on how other people were performing and the size of the project, and I estimated it would have 8 to 12 million TVL, and I think it had 10.3 on the first 2 days. So I was like almost smack bang directly in the middle of the range.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I got into that, and then I met the team last year, the start of 2023. Again, very good at research, very good with numbers and such, but my outgoingness into talking to new people has not always been the best. So I enrolled in a course where people were getting into the blockchain space to try and meet new people. I didn't know more about blockchain. That wasn't my goal
Yeah.
there. It was just to try and force myself to meet new people. And so I talked with everyone because that's my goal. I talked to every single person that joined our cohort, and then I ended up talking with Zoltan and Emmanuel the most, and decided to get things started with them. And so we actually had another person on board, but things didn't work out. So I don't need to spend too much
Yeah.
time talking
Yeah.
there. It is what it is. But that's pretty much where we met, and we started ideating. The idea wasn't what it is today. It started off pretty small and slowly grew as we got to know each other, as we learned about each other's skills, as we learned about each other's past experiences. We started fleshing out the idea more and more over 2023 until, Q3, Q4 of 2023, when we were like, okay, guys, I think we actually have this pretty nailed down on the direction we want to go. Let's finish
Yeah.
ideating on how this looks. And then so we spent a couple more months ideating on what will it look like, what is the roadmap, what is the structure internally, what do we need to get done, and all that good stuff. And we started executing on it. I went to New York City last year to present an MVP in terms of like just not the whole platform, but in terms of the like AI side of it, showing off that we can integrate different tooling. And then we ended up scrapping that to go back to the drawing board to make it more expensive, because once we saw that, we were like, we could probably do it better. We could probably make it bigger. And so that's what we started doing. And so the idea hasn't really changed much in the last 6 months. It has just grown in scope as things have moved along. Things we had for the end of the year have been moved to the start of the year, all that kind of stuff. We were originally going to build it out Web 2 storage, right? As we weren't sure we could get a partnership with the Web3 side of like deep in decentralized infrastructure, but that moved forward as we had our partnership with Nillion. So that allowed us to know that we could do that straight away. So we can cut out that part where we had to worry about the Web2 storage side of data. We just go straight into the Web3 side. So things like that have changed the plans, but that's only sped the plan up in all intents and purposes. So that's a little bit about where we were going.
Nice. No, I love it. It's funny that you say that you actually joined that because of the whole being outgoing and all that stuff, because you're known as the professional yapper inside the group. It's not you telling me that you actually joined that to force yourself to talk more to people. It's like, really? Like, because you talk to everyone and you talk a lot, man. You're a professional yapper. We have a secret for you. It was made because of you. So you said that, I was like, that's new. I didn't know that about Sinky.
I'm actually extremely introverted when it comes to talking to new people. Talking in a situation like this is completely fine, right? Because while I am
Yeah,
aware people are going to be watching it, I'm talking to you, right?
yeah.
And even if I talk to someone new, like in a a partnership call or something like that, it's not the same. Like and at the same time, not liking something and not being able to do them are two different things. Just because I can do something doesn't mean I like it. There's just something about I guess being the center of attention, having everyone watching the things that I'm doing all the time, that makes me quite uncomfortable. I'd rather be working, and I don't like the idea of having people watching me while I'm working. So that's kind of how I feel. It's like it makes me feel uneasy in that regard. But as you said, I actually can't stop talking once I start. And so maybe that's part of it. Maybe I feel like when I start talking, that it's fucking over for everyone. I'm gonna talk everyone's ears off and they're in danger. And maybe that's why I try to keep to myself in that regard.
No, that's cool. That's good for the podcast too, man. So that's why we started this. Honestly, each of our calls, takes hours at times. We just started yapping. So I actually like it. It's good for the podcast. But yeah, it was just funny to hear that. It was funny to hear that, you joined that to force yourself to talk to people. It's like, you don't need help talking to people, dude. But yeah, more about your background. Um, that was a pretty nice way of pretty much saying you're a gigabrain. So, no, I've seen it. Stinky is in fact a gigabrain. And if you're struggling with one of the really hard puzzles of the treasure hunt, it came from him. That's blame him. That's his evil Stinky side.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
like, oh, now this is simple, dude. Anyone can get this. And then I see it, it's like, is this a sentence? Like, are you sure it's just a word in here? Like, we haven't even released the hardest one. And it seems to be like even
I actually
family
didn't do the
related.
hardest. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's your brother. So it's like, it might just be a family thing, you know.
Yeah,
That's, I think that's coming up
he's
this
actually
week,
doing
maybe.
this. Is it?
Uh, Maybe. Well, I've been moving that for a while now.
My
But it's still
favorite one
the
is still the
week 5.
week 5. Yeah, it's my favorite one. I love
Or
it.
what?
It is
What about the
so
one of the dots?
beautiful. Oh, was that not week 5? I thought that was week 5.
No, that was week 3. The week
Ah,
5 is the murder story.
oh, that's a good one too. My
Yeah.
partner actually helped me craft that one. I didn't have time to type
Mm.
it all out. I had the idea, and then I just yapped to her, and she wrote it down as I yapped. It was good. It's my favorite way. I mean, you need a personal assistant who just writes while I speak. That's my goal. That's how I know I've made it. Everyone else wants a Lambo and stuff like that. I just want someone to write down what I'm yapping about and then read it back to me.
That assistant is gonna have to write quite a lot, man. That's that's for sure. So hope the pay is good, man.
Ah, yeah. Wow. Like, okay, I
might
don't
need
think
to
we'll even
drop might need to drop similar to what a Lambo would cost. You know, if what
on
you
an
actually want
assistant.
is to write anything that you say, because yeah, if you yap, man.
Yeah, it is pretty large. But no, that
Yeah,
the speaking of the treasure hunt, do we have anything planned to talk about that while we're on the topic?
I guess we can talk a little bit about how the game is going to be, because that game started just being a small game for the one of the words, and it actually ended up evolving quite a lot. Now it's an open
Yep,
world. It looks amazing. I've tried it. It looks like an actual video game pretty much. And
that is.
I won't dive that much into that subject, but from what I was talking to E, is like actually that went so well. And some of our partnerships that we have going on right now, and some of the ideas of the tech team, is to actually
Oh.
start going into. Oh, okay, fuck. I won't say it.
Yo, bro, whoa, get those beans back in there. What the hell?
Yeah, but there's another
We're not
industry,
ready.
that is quite good that
We're not
we're looking
ready.
into tapping. It
You
looks like
wanted
we're
to.
ready.
You're about to. You're about to. We've hired
Uh,
out. We've already hired out for it, so we are ready on that front. But we can hold off on how we're going to be executing it for a little bit.
I have a
Let's.
meeting tomorrow in which I will be talking about that. I'm
Okay, well,
letting you know
save it for.
already.
But on the treasure hunt side, yeah. So with this $10,000 treasure hunt at this stage, that's how much it is. It could be more by the end. And I actually fronted that with my own money when we were still raising. We needed, all the costs were going to development and making sure that we could do things when we had like no money. And I ended up putting my own 10 grand up for that. Not that I had much more, but I had enough more to be living on, so it was fine. Um, Luckily, that's not a problem now. But hey,
Yeah,
it was pretty scary at the time. I remember saying it. The
man.
team was like, "Oh,
Man said,
but the team was, they got behind me on the idea. They liked the idea of the treasure hunt. We uh, the inspiration for it came from ones in the past, but everyone was doing these point systems, right? Everyone's doing, you get
yeah,
points for doing this point,
when
and so
token.
far, win token, yeah, and so far I've seen nothing really come from those points. Like some of those protocols haven't even launched anything. They've been gathering points for 6 months for maybe something, and then some of them just go, oh, they were for nothing, and anyway, it wasn't. We
Yeah.
didn't promise anything. And so instead of doing that, instead of being boring, I decided that maybe a treasure hunt would be more fun. Only because I wanted to make a treasure hunt, not because anyone else asked for it. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
remember that day, how it went down. Pretty much, just call me like, we're doing this, and if you hear this, and tell me if it's been done already.
yeah. And so I decided to do it. And so it started off with like a no budget, me just coming out with correct ideas, and it evolved over time as I got more into it, as we put a little bit more into into making sure it was a reality. And then we ended
Yeah.
up having it so that we actually had someone come on who really liked the idea and could do it at a very good rate for us. He built this little game, and so we'll actually be allowing people to play this little game for free. It actually showcases some of the technology in the backend that we're going to be using, and so I
Mhm.
think that's one of the coolest parts about it. If you guys are wondering how we're going to be executing things, it's actually going to show you some of the blockchain side of things on how we can make this interactions very seamless and very easy to use, while still providing hints and guidance on the treasure hunt. And so this treasure
Yeah.
hunt, there's a site, getourshekels.com, and that is where you can find the past hints. It still has some time to go. It's not finished yet. And to
Yeah.
wrap it all up with a nice bow, we'll be releasing a game that has a bunch of hints. The game's free. We were originally going to have it paid, but then I'm like, paying for hints, that's so cringe. So I just decided to make it free instead, and pay out of pocket for the developer on my end for that, as it was, again, my idea. So yeah, that look forward to it. It'll be for both PC, like Windows and Mac. There'll be
Yeah.
two builds. You have to download it and play it. You'll be able to play it with other people, so work together. And I suggest having more than one person going through and playing it. If you want to get into groups of 2 to 4,
Yeah.
I would be ready to do that. Let's say that, as you may find it hard to get all the hints in a timely fashion on your own.
Also, like some people might be new to the protocol and the hunt itself. So, what exactly are these words? How are they getting their treasure? Because we've made that public, but it'd be cool to mention it now.
Yeah, so the treasure has to do with a wallet. We had a spare wallet made up for this, and the words that you're trying to find give you the seed phrase for this wallet. In the wallet will be something. Again, I haven't talked about this yet, but we will now. In the wallet
Yeah.
will be something that we will buy back with the prize money. Why? Does it not
Mm.
just have the money in it? Why? They could just put the money in it. No, because the rules state that you have to come on to a Twitter space
An
with us
MA. Yeah.
and tell us how you figured it out. Um, and if I put the money in the wallet, I guarantee that's not happening. I guarantee the money goes
Yeah.
out of the wallet and nobody comes into the space and explains how they did it. Um, what about for anons? Well, I guess you better write up a really good outline for your friend to come on to the space instead of you. Again, you can come on. You don't have to have your face. You can come onto the spaces on
Yeah.
Twitter and have a voice changer on. I don't care. I care about you explaining your process in the treasure hunt. That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
That's what I'm interested in, and that's not for some big other reason. It's just because I want to know how the winner did it. I want to know what they were thinking. I'm just a curious person myself, and so
That's the research background coming on right now. It's like I want to
that's just
understand
me
how they did it. Yeah.
satisfying my own curiosity. So that's me putting my own little I need to know this sprinkle on top of it.
So
Um,
pretty much this whole treasure hunt was not a community building tactic or anything like that. It was just an experiment that Stinky did because he's a curious person. I wanted to see what happens when you release
yeah,
something like that and see what is the thought process that people have to figure that out and how they behave. So
exactly.
that's what we did. Yeah. All right. That makes sense.
Yeah,
Makes
pretty
total
much.
sense. Right.
Having a
So
fun.
we have because you mentioned the game's going to be free, but I also mentioned that we have an NFT collection coming on as well. So want to touch on that a little bit more?
Ooh, well.
Another NFT.
Another well, yeah. So the video game NFTs aren't anything special. That again, they're just minting that you played the game, so we can keep track of how many people played it and what they found and all that kind of stuff. It's like it's actually used more for statistics than it is for um,
Hmm.
rewards. As a sense, you can you'll be in your wallet. You can show people that you were here at the start doing this because it won't be open forever. It'll close. Um, but we actually are doing an OG NFT collection. So this
Yeah.
OG NFT collection will be AI generated profile picture collection, and this will be able to be used on our website once it's live. So when we have the marketplace open with the builder open,
Hmm.
everyone will be able to manage their own profile and set their own profile pictures and such. And so this OG NFT collection will allow people to get discounts. It'll allow them to show off that they were early. It'll unlock new, account customizations so that it gives a bit more backing that you've been around in the space. Um, as each profile in the marketplace will have some kind of rating system based
Yeah.
on the amount of users that use their assistants, the amount of feedback they get, all that kind of stuff that lets you know that they've been building with us for a while. The products they make are good. They're not just randomly pushing out, cash grabs or things that don't work, and pay gating things that aren't actually doing what they say they're going to do, and will allow for a community-based review system. And so, obviously, if you get one of the OG profile pictures along with good ratings, and you've been around for a long time, it's going to add a lot of credibility to your ability to make these assistants. And so, because we're building a no-code platform, anyone can do it. As long as you have a skill that's worth something, you'll be able to monetize it on the platform, and having that credibility behind who you are when doing that is likely to be worth its weight, along with the discounts. And of course, would include our NFT collection and the community airdrop. Like, wait, what?
What is
Oh
it?
wait, what? Sorry, the community incentives. My bad. Correction. It's incentives. I have no idea why I said that. Must be. Fuck.
I don't know, man. I have no clue. I'll need to do some research. Help me out with that. But yeah, all right. So there's that. I want to start jumping into some of the questions.
Yeah.
We had like 30 plus comments on that tweet. So they'll be quite upset if I don't hold you here in this podcast and force you to answer them. So let me get on that.
What I'm here for.
Yeah. All right. So first one is from one of the sky chats. Actually, nice to see that. Is what time is the release of the token? Is what they're asking.
The exact minute? I couldn't tell
I
you.
guess.
The exact date, I couldn't tell you. The answer is the end of April to early May, depending on how things go. We sort of have we gotta push through these audits, we gotta whatever. So there are a few caveats on that, right? We need to have the vesting contracts audited and all that kind of good stuff. So we actually do have access to the blockchains we're building on. We actually do have access to their security teams to have a look at these contracts. So we'll know that they're safe before they're even audited. But of course, everyone wants that shiny audit sticker, even though most projects that are audited still get compromised. Like almost every project that is compromised to a large degree with lots of money was audited. So okay, I'm not saying that it's bad. We're going to do it, of course. Of course, I'm not saying we won't. I'm just saying that, guys, don't see an audit on a project and just mindlessly assume that means you should put every last dollar you have there, because they're safe. Things. Lots of audited companies struggle. But that's kind of the only when do we launch question, right? It is once we're sure that everything is safe. If we need to delay that for a couple of weeks, I'm sorry. I know people don't want any delays ever, but I'm going to delay it if there's security reasons, right?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. But now, as CMO, I want to say we're releasing kind of soon. So can you give us an approximate of when we're launching? Because I've even thrown that around a little bit on Twitter, to be honest.
high 20s in April. Put it that way. We have an event in April in the middle of it, so we need to get home on that week on the early 20th type thing, 20th, 21st. We're getting home, and then say jet lag for 2 days, and then organization for the final steps. We should have it before we get. We should have it mostly finalized before we go. But just in case, we need those extra few days. We're looking at late 20s of April, if not the early single digits in May, but aiming for those late 20s.
All right. Say the event that we're going to, man.
Well, actually, I'm not going to it. The ticket's kind of expensive, guys. I could obviously write off the company expense and take everyone and let's go to an event. But this next event coming up in April, we'll probably just send the CEO and save some money because the tickets are like $5,000 or something. I think like for the event, crazy, yeah.
Holy.
Yeah, Dubai, am I right? So that's tokens 2049. Of course, we do have some connections there that we're talking to see whether or not we can change that. But you know how it is. I mean, everyone wants that. So, but the event we are doing that is much bigger and that we will all be going to will be NBX, Next Blockchain Expo in Warsaw, Poland. They have some big announcements coming out that I'm not going to spill for them, but that should be out on Monday. And we're very excited. We have a speaking spot there. We have the stage. I think it's a 10 or 15 minute speaking spot. and they've worked with us on some connections and things. They're actually our partners, and we're very grateful for them taking us on early. They talked to us and took us on in the angel stage, so we were a nobody. And they still decided to partner with us. Our name was on their website alongside, the names of Binance and Coinbase and things like that, right? So they took a lot of risk on us in terms of that and making sure that we were legit and taking the time. But we also spent a lot of time with them talking about our vision and what was happening and what we were doing. And so they obviously felt comfortable with us even back in the angel stage. And so we've actually been on their website for a while now, and it's our pleasure to be sponsoring our stage at their event, and then being able to speak while we're there.
Yeah, cool. And for the looks of it, we'll have maybe some more stuff to show up in that event, because what I was talking to it looks like some of the features are coming up faster than I even expected. So by May, we'll have something cool to show around in that expo. So I'm looking forward to it. All right, next question. It says, how does Skillful manage the issue of scalability? The demand for AI services could grow immensely. What are the plans to carry that potential demand?
Yep. So it really comes down to the DPIN providers, making sure that there's enough storage there, but having a completely separate storage network for data and not transactions, and that allows for a decent amount more scalability. So there's not too many issues there. We have made sure that we can have other options come up for storage if we need. We will have backup options for if we ever run into any limitations. So we'll be able to convert people's storage options from one provider to another if that was somehow the issue. On the blockchain side, on the smart contract execution side, if that was a limiting factor, if you look at scale.space, that's who we're using for a lot of things. I'll elaborate more on that in the future, but they allow us to run our own layer 2 chain with their infrastructure and their technology. And because they're EVM compatible, we can kind of just pick up the code and drop it on a new chain. And what I mean with that is not move everyone, but say we have one chain in parallel going that gets a bit full and there's too many transactions, we can actually just deploy another chain parallel to it. Those chains don't need to talk to each other because that's not the purpose of how we're utilizing it. So them being separate doesn't actually change a lot. So that kind of solves that issue. And again, if anything really, really bad happened, all the contracts being EVM compatible means that we can redeploy somewhere else if something unforeseen happened.
Cool. So next question. What are the key features of Skillful AI, and how do they differentiate from other AI platforms?
First of all, we are one of the few on the AI agent side. I'm not saying there aren't any others. Again, I don't have time to research every new company, but of the majority of the companies, one of the few companies that actually has a Fortune 500 machine learning engineer on our team. Our CTO can talk more about his background when it's his turn, but in terms of staying up with current research, in terms of understanding the direction of the space, and in terms of actually knowing how to execute on making these agents, our knowledge in that sense is you don't get any higher level, right? Maybe in some secret research lab that no one's ever heard of in the middle of the desert, but again, no one's ever heard of that, so I'd like to hear them counter us on that. But that's not the main value add. Like, there's lots of smart people in the world. It's not just about being smart, right? It's about how do you make that useful for people. And so that's a lot where I've been focusing on. How do we take these things that are really creative and really new and really innovative, and how do we make them useful for people to actually use? How do we make them actionable, I guess? And so that's where we focus on the memory side of things, that long-term memory storage, that personalization, that storage of your own interactions and weights, and updating them and being able to store them in a user-owned way, where the users own their data and their training sets and can choose what to do with them. Alongside the tooling, again, that I touched on, having models that learn how to use tools, how to execute tasks, not just in general, but how you want them to be done, is quite a complex issue. I've talked about the paper a little bit, and I need to make sure that's on top of it before I eventually have this paper be outdated. But as of middle or early February, the most recent survey of LLMs showed that the area that I'm talking about, in the way I'm talking about it, had very little research. I believe it is called a survey a survey of LLMs. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. Yeah, a survey of large language models, 2023 WX Zhao. I think it is. Was it him or was it S Monet? I'll find it somewhere. No, it was S. It was S Monet. Sorry, is what I'm thinking of. Large language models, a study. That's what it's called, and it's by S Monet, 2 E's, and they talk about this 20 pages in, I think, roughly off the top of my head, and they have a nice pictorial, diagram representation. It's actually mislabeled, but ignoring that, where they show what's in the tooling space right now, and it's an area of exploration. Nobody has a solution that would be seen as the solution right now. And I don't really see a lot of people working on it in the way that it needs to be done to do what we're talking about doing. So that would be our most unique areas. But then in the Web3 space, I'd say the next, adding on top of that, would be our user experience. I haven't seen anyone trying to integrate the user experience in how we have. And I wouldn't say it's necessarily unique. It's just well thought out. Anyone could do this if they get the right partners. And I actually think people should do this. I'm not saying this is something that we have exclusively. I'm thinking people just don't think about it enough. And once we start doing it, I think more people will do it this way. But that's fine. Again, that's not our unique value proposition. It's just one of the things that I think we're ahead on.
Yeah, I remember that paper. It's actually quite bullish because there really is a gap in the market, and we're pretty much filling that up. So we have another one. This one is actually from our friend Professor X. It says, the everyday person, for example, ChatGPT users, how you explain the importance of Skillful AI and what it offers.
Yeah, there's a few things there, right?
And sorry, before you get started, let me actually, because this can be quite similar to this other one, so mix that with what is the difference with using ChatGPT or using a Skillful AI. So I guess you can tackle both with those.
Okay. I'll start pretty simply. I've had a few people tell me that nobody cares about privacy, and then my response every time that they say this to me is, "Okay, can I have your nudes?" And they go, "What? Why would you ask for that?" And I'm like, "Well, you don't care about your privacy. Can I have them?" And they go, "Well, obviously not." I go, "Okay, can I have your bank account details?" No? Okay, well, I didn't think so. So you care about privacy, you just don't care if someone has your name. You just don't care if someone knows what your Facebook account is. You just don't care about these surface level identifiers of who you are as a person. But you actually do care about your privacy, because otherwise I'll take all your stuff, give it to me right now, because you don't care about it. So that's, I really don't like, a lot of people say this to me, nobody cares about privacy. You do, though. You actually, everyone does. Just the line in the sand may be different on what type of information you find okay to be out there. And so I don't believe that you can get everything out of these large language models that you need to actually be a personal assistant. Go look at large companies; they're not using GPT as it is now. They may be using a version of it or some other offline model so they can feed it data and use it. But nobody's using direct connection to their servers where the data can be used to train their stuff, because they have secrets. They have company secrets. We're not using that to train your model, and we're not asking you to do that for us either. And so instead of having to have a huge private model that costs millions of dollars that you try and get for your company, each individual have access to their own private models, where any information they input to change the model's behavior for themselves and to do things for them will be owned by that user. That user will have all access to all their data. It'll be stored safely in our DeepIn providers network, and nobody else will have access to it except for you. And so in that regard, it actually can be personalized. You can tell it personal details. You can tell it intimate details. You can give it access to these kind of things. Obviously not right at the stage, but that is the whole point. And if you're not working towards that, I don't understand how you could possibly say something is your personal assistant. If in theory, it should be better than a personal assistant eventually, because you can tell it things you might not even want to tell your assistant. And that's what personalization really is. It's all these things that you don't want to talk to other people about. We don't have to, because you're not talking to other people about it. You just have an algorithm that is owned by you, stored by you privately, that can then execute based on the things you want. So that will be a bit more of a hard ass, privacy is very important kind of answer. But at the same time, on the other side, and this is something that Emmanuel would be very, very happy to get into, because I know he loves to go on rants in this regard, but you can't actually do that much currently with these other large language models. Again, a large language model isn't an automated assistant or autonomous in any way. It is just a token prediction model, right? That's all it does. You give an input and it predicts the next likely token to give you information back. And you can do some cool stuff with it. But even talking with developers, on the game development side, for whatever reason I do that, they are finding that these tools and these APIs that they can call with other large language models at the moment don't do what they need to do. They're helpful in a lot of instances and they can do cool things, but there's a lot of manual work they need to still do themselves that they can see very easily not needing to do if you just got rid of some of the limitations.
Yeah.
And so these niche topics and being able to customize them in this sense is important. And then also being able to customize them in a no code way and build up your own assistant is something that is not currently offered to the degree that people would need to actually use them functionally.
Cool. That kind of leads me to this next question. It says, like, what's the best way that the average person can get involved with the project, if not technical at all? Which I think is kind of something we try to tackle on, actually bring this to everyone and not just technical people, but you can expand more on that.
Yeah, it's a long slog to make sure that things are as easy as possible, right? When MIT developed Scratch, they didn't have that up and running instantly, right? It took a lot of ideation to make sure they could make a coding platform that was usable by children even. And so it takes time, but at the moment we are offering people who are interested access to early alphas and early betas of different parts and products. And so what we're doing here as well in the back end, we're doing a lot of work on much larger features. Publicly, we're putting out little parts of each feature, little snippets and tools, so we can get feedback on how people find them to make sure that we're slowly streamlining the process towards complete understanding for a non-technical user. So getting involved in that and helping us in that way, especially if you aren't a technical user, is very, very helpful. And part of what you can do as a community member to assist us in this goal and make sure that we're moving towards that goal quickly with real-time feedback. A lot of my work is going to be in there. Obviously, the last couple of weeks I've been focused on raising money, but that is kind of the area that I'll be making sure is working on the public side, along with a bunch of other things. So getting in there, getting into our alpha and giving us feedback on every update, every new bit of model, is really what you can do. If you're not into that, if you just want to support the project in other ways, or you're just interested in the token, you can get into the OG NFD collection. You can talk about us on social media. Every little thing that you do that mentions our name obviously helps more people hear it and allows us to do better testing and better feedback. And that's the goal, right? We want as many people to be giving us feedback on how they want things to look and what makes sense and what doesn't. Because then I can update documentation. I can make sure we get videos out. We're going to have a Skillful AI Learn section eventually. I've just hired someone that is not only a developer but does technical documentation as well as public documentations. So I'm focusing really hard on this user experience side of things. I want to make sure that every little thing, every bit of feedback we get is backlogged and executed on to our best of our abilities.
Cool. Now Curio, one of the OGs also has like 3 different questions for you, Mr. Sinky.
Of course.
Says like, yeah, of course. Says like, explain all products of Skillful AI to someone who has no idea what AI is. It also says, explain real life use cases for different professions, marketer, coder, engineer, etc. And what are the biggest challenges in developing a Skillful AI, and what's the plans to address that?
Can we push those onto Zoltan's side? I fucking yapped about that enough. No, it's fine. I'll touch on them. I'll touch on them quickly. But the platform we are building, right? We can talk about all the individual uses you could use it for, and maybe that's a bit easier for people to understand. But what it really allows is if you have a skill, you can train something to be as close to you as possible, especially if it's an online skill. Let's focus on online skills for now. We can talk about teaching type skills or other. It's not physical. So if you're a mechanic, it's probably not gonna at this stage do any mechanical jobs. Once you can put the AI into a robot, then that's a different discussion. But let's ignore that for now and just worry about what you can do via the internet, right?
Cool.
If you have a skill, marketing is a very good one. User acquisition, things like that. Design. being able to teach something, the way in which you design things, the thought process you go through, the steps in which you get to an end result, and teaching it allows you to take on more work. Taking on more work allows you to get paid for more work, right? If the quality is the same across the board, then then your users are still happy. And what you can do here is you can actually rent out these assistants to other people that want to do it instead of having to do the work or put the information in yourself, without giving the underlying way in which it occurs. And what that means is that they can use it for a set amount of time without being able to make a copy of it and know exactly how you do it. So that would be like the very simplest way. Branded AI is something that we like. That's another good example. What we mean by branded AI is there's a lot of influencers don't have enough time to do everything they want to with their communities, but having an AI version of yourself that knows the way in which you speak and act and your branding and all that kind of stuff, not just for people but for companies too, allows it
Mm-hmm.
to add life to your product and company and brand more often than you personally can, because you're so busy. It allows you to deal with the things that maybe you don't trust it to do, like signing contracts and talking about business deals. It actually allows you to do a bit more of that kind of side of things, while still giving your audience what they really want, which is interaction, right? They want interaction with you and your likeness and your style.
Yeah.
So those are a few examples on that front.
For branded AI, something that I like to explain to people is like, you have a lot of coaches now online, or you have people with programs that are teaching different things. With branded AI, literally takes the time factor out of the equation, so the ability to scale really goes like limitless. Because you don't have so many times, you don't have so much time during the day, to tackle X amount of clients. Because there's just one of you. But branded AI is a literal clone of you that know what you know, talks like the way you do. People can interact with it directly, get their questions answered, and that way you can tackle more clients. So it's not only for influencers, like literally if you have a business or anything that you want to teach, like the use cases of branded AI are quite many, and that's something I'm really excited for.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful. And again, it's something that people don't talk about enough when they talk about being a little bit scared of AI. Like in the Silicon Valley space, right? They talk about, oh, we need companies. As companies, we get digital twins. We get digital twins. We make copies of our workers so that if they leave us suddenly, we still know how to do their job and stuff. And that's good for companies not collapsing if there's mass leave, but it doesn't help you as a person when you try to go to
Yeah,
apply to another job. There's a vacancy, and they're like, oh, we actually just copied the last guy, so why would we even want to hire you? And again, that's I don't like to get extreme, because I think we're going in the right direction with AI. But
yeah,
that is something they talk about. Look up digital twin and how they talk about it and the way in which they talk about it, and their attitudes towards that kind of thing is not only ignorant of the regular person's life, right? It is concerning, that lack of care towards what it would mean, because it's not just about retaining an employee. That means, what about having an employee coming in to replace them? Doesn't sound like it. Um, and also, why should that company get access to your knowledge and the way you work for the rest of
yeah,
their company's experience, when it's you did it? But they paid you for your time there. They didn't pay you out to have that copy of your time forever. Of course, if you sign it in your contract that allows them to do it, that's on you. Don't do that. But I would much rather people be able to do. You know, it's at the next step in globalization. If you think about it, globalization allows countries to interact with each other on a very rapid scale, right?
mm,
And allows for goods to be delivered all over. Um, Technology is going to get so fast and so advanced that individuals doing that with one another is almost the same thing, right? Getting goods and services from individuals instead of companies, um, potentially good. I'm not an economist, so I don't want to go into that area again. It's not my area of expertise, but um, I can't see any problems with individuals owning more of
mm,
their talent and being able to monetize
yeah,
it for themselves, right?
yeah. I don't see a con in there either. But anything else that you want to plug before we cut this podcast? Because I can already feel my Telegram just popping off. We quite a busy week. It's been a nice session, to move this on. There's more questions, but some of them I'm saving for Sultan and E, because we have those upcoming podcasts, literally next week as well. So just saving some of
Yep.
those.
So
So yeah, I don't know if you want anything left to add before we cut it.
Yeah, anyone whose questions haven't been answered, assume that that's because we believe they're better suited to kickstart Emmanuel
Yeah,
and Zoltan's podcasts. We saw them all. There weren't so many that we couldn't, backlog them, but they will be moved to the other founders.
yeah,
As if I get everything, this podcast will turn from 1 hour and a bit to 3, 4, 5 hours. You'll see the light disappear in my room as it goes night because, as we said, I'm a professional yapper. I've been trying to be
yeah,
reserved, but you give me enough time and ask me enough questions, I'll eventually start yapping about it all. No, that's not
yeah.
quite true, but I am obviously very passionate about this. I have a lot to say. I enjoy what we're doing, and I can't wait to share more. Again, because we're still growing, we have to be a little bit careful what we share publicly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of copycats in the space, and while I don't think you can copy us on a technical standpoint, as I think our way of doing it is very well thought out, and we haven't released all the details that you'll need to do it. It isn't hard to take the talking points and do a marketing campaign on it when you don't have anything. And
Hmm.
until we're a bit better known, I think it's better to be a little safe than sorry.
Yeah.
Because the last thing you want is someone that only knows how to market, taking the idea, getting a bunch of money off people, and then never being able to deliver the idea to them. Again, I don't care if somebody comes out and makes a better product than us at the end of the day. I care. I don't want it to happen. But if they do it and they deserve it, then they're building towards a goal that I want, right? If anything, I
Yeah.
want to talk to them. But if somebody comes out promising the world, taking everyone's money, and then can't do it, and
Hmm.
and people we lost some level of traction because of that. That would
Yeah.
bother me a little bit. And so it is actually, I can take steps to prevent that. And so that's why we haven't just published our technical white paper yet and put how we're doing everything out there. We will do that probably sometime on launch once the token comes out. We'll
Yeah.
hopefully have that technical white paper done and release it because we have a lot of funding. We'll be ramped up for launch. People will know we're out there. The token's out there, and that'll be the perfect time to drop the technical white paper where you'll get a lot of insight into the way we plan on building this.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, like you said, there's a lot that we have kept behind the scenes pretty much. Have to bite my tongue quite a lot in the recent weeks. There's so much I want to share because I know it's happening, but like you said, like you need to be a little reserved before you actually have something out. But I think we're getting close to that. We're getting close to launch. We're getting close to release some really cool features. So
I have one more thing
y-
actually.
yeah.
People were asking how much money we spent on where we were at when we started this week. Well, so we have a model hub that you can test in alpha. We had our
Mhm.
community, we had the team, we had whatever. Um, we had spent over several months at that point, including legal fees and company setup and getting documents for SAFs and all the good stuff that takes a nice chunk out of it. Because we have a technical founder and because the rest of us do a lot of the business stuff ourselves and outreach, I believe on costs that were pretty much all external that we couldn't keep down to try and get things moving, it was like 40K, 50K. I had someone ask me if we'd spent a few 100K, and no, we hadn't. And on that front, the money that we've had come in, people do wonder that money is pretty much exclusively used for hires and then the token launch side of things. So that's for money set aside for a big exchange, the dollar side needed for liquidity, so the cash side to go along the token, and so on and so forth. So most of it is going into development and hires, and then the appropriate amount into exchange listings and marketing as we ramp up for launch. I
Yeah.
believe with the money we have now, we have a decent runway. And so we're not too stressed there. And if anyone was wondering what would happen after that runway runs out in a couple years' time, well, by the end of this year, you'll know how we're going on the monetization side. We believe that our platform is going to be so powerful that the user base alone and the revenue flowing through there will cover all expansion that we need. And worst case, we'll have a much higher valuation. I'm almost certain of it. Again, no promises, not financial advice, yada yada. But at that point, we could look into doing another raise if we ever needed. But I I feel pretty confident that we don't need to do that, and that our revenue alone
Yeah.
will sustain us as a company. And
That's
on
a
that
cool
front,
thing.
I have been rapidly hiring, so I'll let you finish.
Yeah, no, that's I was just gonna add to that because that's something that really sold me on Skillful when I first met you guys. It's like this project is actually building something. It's not just like a token and it's like going this niche. We're actually building a real company with a real product that is actually trying to bring on users for a day-to-day basis. So even after the bull market runs out, we are still going to be operating as a company. We have actually something for people out there. So
AI's bull run goes past the crypto cycle. They're not necessarily the same
yeah,
thing. We get the benefit of both narratives, and like you said on the
exactly.
gaming side briefly, we may have something cooking there that will carry us through any weak points. Like I said, we've been planning this for over a year. We've been putting a lot of work into partnerships and making sure that we understand everything that's coming up, and to the best of our abilities, to the best that you can plan. And so, yeah, we've already started hiring. The second that money
Hmm.
came in, we already had developers that we'd already backlogged and cataloged for. As soon as we had money, we're going to hire these people. We've already DD'd them, and so we weren't stressing there because we'd already talked to these people. We already knew them. We already understood who they were, where they were, and we followed up with them to make sure they hadn't found something else yet, or if they had found something else, they would be able to come back to us if we needed them.
Hmm.
We hired 2 more machine learning engineers, as well as our CTO, who's been able to do it all so far himself. So that power on that front just got magnified in the last few weeks, extremely largely. That's not a sentence. You get the point. And then same with the back end developers and the front end. I believe the last thing that we've just finished having a conversation about is getting our own in-house graphic designer and UI UX designer. We've had one
Yeah.
that we outsourced and out-hired, but it's probably time to start bringing someone else in. Don't apply for that because we already have it. That's just someone that I haven't officially onboarded myself yet, so that's why I mentioned it. And then we've also hired a game developer for some reason.
Mm. Currently
Weirdly.
nothing.
Cool. That about wraps up. I think that's all I want to say. I think I've definitely
Yeah.
said too much, but we should just start calling any calls or podcasts we have with me Stanley. I've definitely said too much podcast. That's always how it goes.
Nah, but that's the other podcast for you to the founders to be able to share all your thoughts and narrative to the people, because it's definitely too much just share on written. I would say that's why your assistant, if you actually get an assistant that writes everything you say, that's a tough job.
And
But
before the rumors start, I have lots of hair. I wear a beanie a lot, so some people think that I don't have hair. I do. I have lots of hair. I have lots. I promise. No. I promise you. No. I just don't like styling it because I'm real not in the mood to have to worry about how my hair looks. That's all. In fact, I probably shouldn't have hair. I should probably shave it off, and then I don't have to worry about it anymore.
busy building.
But I need to be going to the gym for a few more months before I can have a bald head. So we're getting there. It's going well, but this isn't Stanley's gym podcast. So let's just wrap it up here.
All right. Thank you for tuning in, guys. And we'll have more episodes coming soon with the rest of the founders. See you later.
So yeah, it's my pleasure.